Hello, my name is Lisa Flicker, and this lesson is on our Georgia Studies Standard, SS8H11, evaluating the role of Georgia in the modern civil rights movement. For this lesson, I wanted my students to understand the role of individuals like Martin Luther King Jr. and John Lewis, and groups like SNCC and SCLC, and the events like the Albany Movement and March on Washington, and the importance that they played during this time period. I also wanted to include some of the ELA standards that would allow students to create more relevant and higher order thinking products. Students would engage in a range of collaborative activities that included following rules for cooperative discussions and decision-making, tracking progress towards goals, and posing questions to speakers that may require elaboration and evidence to support products they were creating. Through the incorporation of technology, I would facilitate the positive, safe, legal, and ethical use of technology while working online or collaboratively. My students through this experience would be creating original works to publish and share them to a class Padlet and their iTunes U courses. This lesson included a web quest and the creation of a collaborative documentary video and iMovie that surrounded our standard. This was a lesson I'd actually created in an iTech class that I had taken last summer and was very excited to be able to use again for this artifact. We have wonderful resources on the modern civil rights movement here in Atlanta, and I wanted to provide an opportunity for students to be able to access them and use them in their own research and learning. Essential questions included within this lesson were who were some of the influential leaders, groups, and events that helped to facilitate the modern era civil rights movement in Georgia. Another was, what was Georgia's response to the Brown versus Board of Education verdict? And finally, how would you explain the resistance to the 1964 Civil Rights Act, including the role that Lester Maddox played within Georgia? After we had had a class discussion and analyzed this time period, I turned learning over to my students through this web quest. Before we started into the web quest, I wanted students to review some of the key terms and people within this unit. I put links inside the Weebly to our Quizlet and quizzes, and as well as some brain pops so that they could access to help review. The second step within the web quest was for students to complete a path and pace productivity card or a choice board. All products created by students were uploaded to our iTunes U course under the standard, and they included screenshots, uploads, videos, attachments. All paths were able to be adjusted with the student's own voice. They just needed to see me if they had a new idea that they wanted to try. For my ELL and LD learners, I also attached audio directions to everything that we had within the Weebly. I included links to the Path and Pace productivity card, to a segregation worksheet that students may include in their choice board, a Nearpod activity, and a trading card template that would enable them to complete their products. Step 3 within this web quest required students to complete in small groups. Groups were decided upon by interest of the specific groups, events, or people within this standard. At this point, students continue to research their specific topic more in depth, and by utilizing community resources like the King Center, the Center for Civil and Human Rights, as well as the Carter Center. Links to these 3 wonderful resources within Atlanta could be accessed through our web quest. Their research could even include a family member or friend who is willing to be interviewed for this project and to experience firsthand this time period or was even a part of one of the events that we've discussed. I also offered students the option of interviewing members of our community that were a part of this time period and whom I had arranged to come to our school on this particular day. Using iMovie on their iPads, the groups edited and created a short documentary on the event, person, or topic they were researching. This documentary needed to be at least 4 minutes in length and created using iMovie. The videos needed to include movies, stills, and audio clips from the time period, as well as any other material cultural representations they felt added to the richness and understanding of their documentaries. I had included an iMovie tutorial for those students who may need a refresher or were unfamiliar with using this resource. We had planned on sharing our documentaries with our Esther Jackson Elementary feeder group. However, due to scheduling conflicts, we weren't able to do so. Therefore, I arranged with a 7th grade teacher within my school for my 8th graders to share their documentaries with them. Ongoing assessments were included throughout this lesson and for the purpose of evaluating students' understanding of the process and the goals within it. Once students began their second part, the choice board, they were provided a rubric to use and encouraged to look back on when working on choice board activities. Students had the opportunity to create products based on their own interests and strengths. They needed to obtain 50 points to earn 100%. I had certain benchmarks that I implemented that 3 days in, they need to have at least one product uploaded to our iTunes U course. This helped to keep students organized and on task. There was also a rubric provided for the video documentary that I wanted students to refer to while creating their group project. Their scores based on 100 possible points. Throughout this learning experience, technology is being used to support student learning through the utilization of Web 2.0 tools and resources. First of all, the format for the web quest is accessed through a Weebly. In order to provide tutorials for iMovie, I used YouTube to access that information. I'm also able to include resources that follow the universal design principles. I accomplished this by providing multiple means for accessing the information included within the web quest. Students could access resources online or through printed paper copies, depending on whether information needed had to be modified. They could also use keyboards or listen to me explain the activities through buttons provided throughout the Weebly. Students were provided access to BrainPop videos, iMovie tutorials, rubrics, quizzes, and Quizlet links. They could also use, for their choice board activities, Pictochart, Keynote, PowerPoint, Prezi, Kahoot, Sway, and iTunes U in order to upload all of those products that they had completed. Students in my classes were very familiar with completing choice board activities, so the learning curve for that aspect of this web quest was minimal. Within this unit, I had warm-ups and ticket out the doors to help me gauge where students were. But at the end of the web quest, I wanted to know what students felt about when they were completing this learning opportunity and how they thought it was as a resource for their own learning. Therefore, I had included this survey at the end of their web quest for them to complete that went from them directly to me. However, I wanted another means for us to share all of the different videos and within all my classes, so I had created a Padlet. The Padlet was created for my students to upload their iMovie documentaries and to provide a brief reflection on their experience. I used the survey results and the Padlet to figure out a plan on how I could adjust this lesson for when I use it another time. Most of this lesson was completed by the students within my class. I had allocated 3 weeks for the completion of this. As we are a one-to-one school with iPad devices issued to every student, it made this process all the more easier for us.